Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to GETI's Live Talk, Global Education and Training Institute's Live Talk hashtag Disruptive Education. This live talk was started by our founder director, Dr. Sunita Gandhi, solely with the aim to disrupt education and provide platform to the educators, edupreneurs, and innovators around the world to come over and share their ideas and provide knowledge and innovation to the education fraternity. So, today we are here and we have almost hosted around 1000 talks till date. So, we have Miss Nafisa Kalangani with us. She is from Kolkata, West Bengal, and she is the academic coordinator of MS Education Institute. She started her career as a admin department in the department, and later she started teaching for after 5 years serving as at the position of admin, and since then she's there in this field since last 18 years. And during the tenure of her 18 years, she has grown as a student, as an educator, and as a human being. So today she'll be discussing the topic of emotional intelligence. So with this, we welcome our dear guest Nafisa ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. As we all know, education illuminates myriad facets. In fact, it is the only hope for a better tomorrow. Hence, would like to begin with a big shout out to the Getty team for being extremely instrumental in creating such platform for educators to come together and share their thoughts. As Neil Armstrong said while putting his first step on moon, one small step for man is a giant leap for mankind. Similarly, every small step, every initiative that an educator takes in instilling the required values in the students, in facilitating the education process for their students, definitely goes a very long way in shaping the future of those students, in turn of the country and the world. I have been very fortunate to be associated with such a progressive institute, MSB Educational Institute, which was established in 1984 and currently has 24 branches in and outside India. It has progressed leaps and bounds, functioning under the superior guidance of His Holiness Dr. Sayyidina Ali Qadar Mufaddal Saifuddin, who be granted a long, prosperous, and healthy life for years to come. It continuously strives to create a culture where teachers become strong educators and in turn employ latest pedagogies to facilitate the learning processes in the classroom, enabling students to excel in all fields of life, adhering religiously to the lofty values and ideals of humanity. I hope my screen is visible, my PowerPoint is visible to all the audience. Thank you so much.
Yes,
So
ma'am, it
that's
is
a little bit
visible.
about the institute that I serve. Years back, we were very focused at just the intellectual capacity of an individual. The term EQ gained popularity in 1995 through the best selling book Emotional Intelligence, written by science journalist Daniel Goleman, who defined emotional intelligence as an array of skills and characteristics that drive leadership performance. So let's dwell a little deeper into it today. Because, in fact, we know today, because of the present situation, depression and such mental illness is taking a toll and increasing in number. So, this is one emotional intelligence, is one aspect which can help us combat such situations and overcome them successfully. In fact, if you look at intelligence, it's no more one dimensional term. It has expanded over years to include now at least 9 of its kind. It's not how smart we are that matters or what really counts. It's how we are smart, in the sense that this has become very plural, and it's this pluralistic view of intelligence was suggested by Howard Gardner, that all people possess at least 9 different intelligences that operate in varying degrees depending upon each individual. Anyways, we can park this discussion for some other time and dwell a little deeper in understanding the present situation, how emotional intelligence helps us overcome the different things that we are facing today, helps us overcome the difficulties and stand victorious. So at times, if we come across this phrase that EQ eats IQ for breakfast, is it really true? Let us understand this through a story of Chris Myers. He was an individual who eventually, when he started his career, or rather, let's start from his school days. At present, he is an entrepreneur, but at a younger age, he bought into a fallacy that the smartest person always wins. As generally the students believe, they feel this, that it's always the smartest person who's winning. And he would make all efforts and pushed himself to achieve the highest scores and excel in every field he worked. He worked as hard as he could, but almost always fell short of his goals. And growing up, he often found himself, like generally the children do find themselves, surrounded with people who are smarter, far more talented than he could have ever hoped to be. And this left him feeling as though he was destined for a life of mediocrity. Now, this wouldn't have been much of a story to say had he not succeeded in life despite this feeling of mediocrity. It so happened that throughout his career, from his first internship to the managerial post, he earned a lot of trust and respect as he climbed the proverbial ladder. Now, the people, that is the peer group, who were undoubtedly smarter than him, claim that either the ones who were constantly promoting him or whom he was working for did not know much, or probably this gentleman was merely too lucky. So what do you think? I mean, what could have been the reason for the success? Obviously, we know by now, it's not just the intellect. There are several other things at play. There are several other requirements to be successful. Success is not a function of raw intelligence. Rather, it's a matter of emotion, relationships, and character. And that's what a holistic education system should aim at imparting. As Maya Angelou once remarked, people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So that's the importance of emotional intelligence. So we can somewhere say that EQ eats IQ for breakfast is partially true, because it is not entirely that the heart triumphs over the head. It's in fact the intersection of the two, and the unique intersection of the two, that helps us excel. It's noteworthy to mention that people are hired for their intellect, but fired for their lack of emotional intelligence. And so that's exactly how it happens. And emotional intelligence takes up such a predominant place in today's time. So if we look into it deeper and we try to understand what emotional intelligence is, it can be defined as the ability to understand feelings in self and in others, and to use these feelings as informational guides for thinking and action. We are understanding, we are creating awareness, we are trying to manage our feelings, and then at the same time, we are trying to manage our relationship. And feelings are an important aspect of that. Okay, if we look at today's talk, what does it focus around? It focuses around the three questions pertaining to EQ: the what, why, and how. The what of intelligence, emotional intelligence rather, is something that we've been discussing so far. And to a certain extent, we've already understood the importance. And as educators, we need to have a high of this quotient. Why is it necessary? Because we deal with the lives of the future generation, and we need to model it out to them. They look up to us. So if we possess something, this intelligence in a higher quantity, we have a high quotient of this, it becomes extremely easy for us to impart and model it out for the students. So that is why it's extremely necessary for educators to have high emotional intelligence. Now, that also covers up the aspect, why is it important? In fact, not only is it important in one aspect of life, that is the workplace, it is important in all aspects of one's life. And how can we achieve it? Now, if we deal into it, like how can we achieve it? What are the ways? Not It's interesting to note that IQ is something that generally a person is born with and develops to a certain extent over time, and personality is something which is crystallized. But emotional intelligence is very, it's something which can be developed. As we say, it has plasticity. It's very plastic. It can be developed through certain conscious and mindful practices. So let's understand how can we do that and help our students in developing that as well. This is a very important organ. This is something we educators are often dealing with, of course, all the time. And the two important aspects of this organ is the limbic system and the rational brain. The limbic system is the one which is responsible for us to feel the emotions. This is where the emotions generate. And the rational brain is which regulates these emotions. So if that is damaged to a great extent, it affects, we do still feel emotions, but we cannot regulate them. So EQ means combining these two. We need to combine the limbic system and the rational brain. That means that emotional flow needs to be rationalized, needs to be regulated in order for us to develop a high EQ. And EQ is the foundation of critical skills. It's like the bark of a tree. It's so important, and on it thrives several other skills. Those there are four aspects of EQ, and they are like the roots. We have self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And they are like the strong roots they are holding on, this emotional intelligence of ours, on which several other skills of ours thrives. So these four roots, if we go to see, they can be clubbed into two major types. You can see the two stars here and two here. So the four aspects of our world of emotions can be clubbed into two, and that is personal competencies and social competencies. And mastery over this can change several things. It can change the way we see ourselves, the way we see the world, and how we go about in pursuit of our goals. So these all things combined together, they help us in getting what we want, the achieve the goal, the ikigai of our lives. We can get it by having a strong emotional intelligence, a high EQ. So as I said, it can be grouped into two parts: personal competence and social competence. Personal competence talks about being first aware of our emotions and then managing them. And social competence is then how we react with people, rather respond with people and manage our relationships. We are very hardwired to emotions. We have more than 400 emotional experiences per day. And emotional intelligence is our ability to understand our emotions and respond to them effectively to produce the behavior we want. And the whole world talks about it, especially in marketing, in advertising, in sales. We talk about it. We want to produce the kind of behavior in the consumers. So they go focusing on the why aspect, the feeling aspect. So that's the importance that we are understanding. Of course, this word was coined long back, but yet, it's said that until anything, if we want a real change to happen, then we need to put it down deep into our education system, because that's where the future generation thrives, and that what helps them develop. So if we want a particular kind of skill in the people, then we have to ensure that it is put into the system and the education system to help us get the maximum benefit from it. And once we become aware of these and take the blinders off, then it's really hard not to do something productive with them. We will definitely be able to make the most of it. As we can see the chart in front of us, that EQ accounts for 60% of the supervisors, they have high EQ. And what percentage of top performers are high in EQ? It's 90%. And of course, if there are people who are skeptical like me, like what percent of low performers are high in EQ? They're just 20%. That means if you are high in EQ, you cannot but be very productive. So that's how important it is to have a good EQ. And as I said, we grouped it into two kinds: personal competencies and social competencies. Now let's look at the ways in which we can strengthen those competencies in ourselves first, and then we will look at the ways of how we can imbibe those in our students too. So having those personal competencies in us, there are several moments in our entire day at work and otherwise where we feel there are burnouts, we feel the fatigue. So how can we overcome those moments? How can we control our emotions at that point of time? A heated argument, and that reflects in everything else that we do. So how can that be controlled? There are several techniques, and mindful following of those can really help us control them. One is, of course, breath control. Taking deep breaths for 2 minutes, say, and that breathing exercise, it can help us reduce the burnout caused due to work to a great extent. Of course, we do say stress is good. To a certain extent, stress is definitely good. If we look at the bell curve of stress, it helps us get out of our comfort zone and get the optimal performance. But if there is prolonged stress and too much to handle, then it's a pitfall. It affects our work to a great extent. So how can we avoid that downward aspect of it? By stress management, that is what we mean. So there are several techniques and they're very simple. When people say do take a break, go out, and we do not want to, it's so much important. The Pomodoro technique and several other things that we have learned already can be employed here in order to come off our stress. In fact, even journalizing our thoughts every day can be one way of overcoming stress. Sharing our problems with someone. So there are sounding boards, and there are those one who can give us advices. So someone who can just listen to us at times. It's very important to just have somebody, a buddy, who can just listen to you, and you can take out everything onto them. And you feel so light, you feel so happy. So those are ways in which we can keep our stress under control to a great extent. Then we have cognitive reconstruction. This is something, understanding of the situation. Whenever we feel angry, sad, or disappointed, we ask ourselves, can there be a different way of looking into it? Is there a lesson that I've learned from this experience? Could there be another way of reacting to the situation? Or if this happens, will I react in the same way? Or how would I have felt if I was in his or her position? Very difficult, empathizing, feeling it like this. So these are certain ways in which the cognitive reconstruction we can do. We can take a time, this is the time between reaction and response. We are not reacting immediately, but we are giving ourselves these reflective questions, and then we respond to our emotions. And whenever we have that rational, the limbic brain and the rational brain coming together, that definitely strengthens our EQ to a great extent. And of course, there is, last but not the least, technique of problem solving checklist. Perhaps it's one of the most realistic and practical self-assessment for managing and regulating our emotional awareness. We make a weekly chart with all the issues, the ones which look something like this, and then we try to resolve it. We give ourselves at least a week's time, including our personal and professional setbacks, and we set aside not much, just 5 to 10 minutes every day, where we come back to the problem list and write down the ways that we can resolve each of them. These are things which it's like we already know, but seldom we put it into practice. So once we start putting them into practice, we are able to get um, the required results. We are able to see the required results. So that's what, and strengthen our personal competencies. Be able to successfully solve one problem, strike it off the checklist, proceed to another. And this is what it something looks like, problems, how they impact our life, the strategies to solve them, how many of them are resolved, they go a tick, and if they're still unresolved, put a cross. And if we really can't do anything about it, put it aside and leave it for the time being, because there's not much that we can do about it. So we just need to sometimes learn to move on. So these are certain things that we need to put it into practice to strengthen our personal competencies. Now, talking about the other aspect, and that is how we can strengthen the competencies which are at play when it comes to socializing with other people. In fact, sleep is also one of them, of course. The sleep hygiene, which which helps us overcome the stress and keep our emotional balances. There are several things which are working below our awareness, and that is what gets cured when we have a good sleep hygiene. So a couple of hours of sleep, when we know we want a 6 to 7 hour sleep, but we are only getting 3 hours of sleep, then we are very not in a very good mood. So that is how the sleep cycle helps us overcome several problems which we are facing in our day-to-day life. And moving on, when we talk about the social aspect, the social competencies or the relationship management, it's important for us to show our feelings. We try to put that mask all the time so much that we do not want to express our emotions completely. Somewhere we feel it makes us feel weak, or it makes us look weak if we are very transparent about our emotions and feelings. That's not how it is. Instead of bottling it up, it's rather we show it up and let them flow sometimes. The little things matter. Do not hesitate to say thank you, sorry, or please, something we learned in our primary years. It might mean a lot to someone and help in growing the bond you share with that person to a great extent. Explaining it, when we are facing a conflict with someone close, we need to explain our actions and decisions. So communicating resolves the conflicts to a great extent. It does not aggravate it. Sometimes we are communicating to aggravate. We are just putting the blame, and we are doing this blame game. So rather communicate to resolve rather than aggravating the problem. That can go a long way in handling tough conversations. The picture beside explains a lot. It's always said a picture speaks 1,000 words, and that's how it is. We are so focused on the way we are seeing things and the six that we are looking at, that we forget that probably it's looking like nine to someone else. So the bird eye view is something we will need to get in order to handle tough conversations. We will have to look into things from others' perspective, or at least a neutral perspective. If not putting ourselves into the other's shoes, at least we can look at it from the overall view, the holistic view of things. And when we have that look, it itself becomes an explanatory factor, and then again our rational brain at play helps us solve a lot of problems that we face. So these are certain ways in which we can strengthen our personal competencies as well as manage our relationship when it comes to becoming emotionally intelligent and having a better EQ. Now, as teachers, as educators, we are always talking about learning. So it's imperative for us to know the four stages of learning. Many of you must be already aware of this. What is unconscious incompetence? Conscious, where we slowly move on to conscious incompetence, and then conscious competence and unconscious competence. What is each stage, and why do we need to understand this? We need to understand this because the students go through these stages. And in fact, there is a fifth stage that we will be talking about. So, what is unconscious incompetence? Unconscious incompetence is a person doesn't know, and he doesn't know that he doesn't know. It's like a child who wants to ride a bicycle. He sees somebody ride it, but he doesn't know that he does not know how to ride it. So he quickly gets hold of one and just starts riding it until he falls of it. So he goes on out to the next stage. When he is unable to do it, now he's at the level of conscious incompetence. He knows, here it's like we know that we don't know kind of situation. He knows that he doesn't know how to ride a bicycle. So now that's a next level. So children do not generally know that they don't know much. Later they come to know that there are a lot of things that they are unaware of. They don't know. That's conscious incompetence. Moving on, they make an effort to know things, and they come to a stage of conscious competence. We work at what we don't know. So whatever we don't know, a child who doesn't know how to ride a bicycle will learn and develop the skill to know it and be able to ride it. And will be able to ride it so well one day that he will really not have to think about anything while riding it. He will do it unconsciously. That competence has set in. So now he's at the fourth stage, where we don't have to think about knowing it. It's become so regular and a pattern for him that he doesn't need to think about it. So that's the fourth stage, and that's where we want our children to be. Unconscious competence, certain life skills we want to imbibe in them to this extent that they can just practice it flawlessly. So the emotional intelligence which we are talking about, it should be imbibed in them right from the kindergarten years, to an extent that they do not have to think about it while they are putting it into practice. They're at this stage of unconscious competence. And the fifth stage, the reflective competence, that's for us, educators. That's where we need to be. Because here we will be able to reflect back on all the four stages and see where the learners are and help them slowly climb up. climb up to the next level until they have also reached this level of unconscious competence. They have reached their mastery, the level of mastery. Okay, this means empathizing with the learners in the different stages, and that's where we stand. That's so we all need to be at the reflective competence level in our emotional intelligence. At least we make an effort to reach out there. So once we have strengthened our own emotional intelligence through these mindful practices on a regular basis, now it's time to bring that into our classrooms also. And of course, the best way to do it, as I've been speaking about throughout, is modeling it. We model it for our students. We all the time practice it mindfully. They see us controlling our anger, they see us interacting with other people in a particular manner, and they learn it. The children learn it best at this young stage by modeling us. So that's what we need to do it consciously all the time. And instead of having these social emotional learning lessons separately, it's better to have them embedded into our lesson plans. Instead of doing a lesson specifically on these skills, try incorporating these lessons into what they're already teaching, what we're already teaching the students. For instance, in science, if we are discussing molecules, you could ask students what forms good partnership. So that is one aspect. We are talking about relationship building. Another option might include reading a book or discussing a history lesson about a socially challenging situation with students and engaging them into conversation about handling social problems. Then the lesson becomes about literacy, history, and social emotional learning. So these are certain practices we can put it into our classrooms. Another way doing it is engaging students in problem solving, whether it's helping solve a difficult math problem or developing a set of class rules. When we are discussing these things, sometimes we feel we are already doing it. What we need to do is we need to consciously do it and dwell a little more on it so that it becomes a value into the students, a value which is incorporated into the students, instilled into them. So, if you're talking about developing a set of class rules at the beginning of the year, we engage the students in all types of problem solving. If students are having trouble waiting for their turn, which is often the case in an online situation, so we can ask the students, can you think of a way that will help you remember to wait for your turn? So we are putting the ball in their court that now let's think of a way. You start thinking how you will learn to wait for your turn. You could also ask older students, and certain cases and certain schools, bullying be a situation, so they can come up with solutions to address this problem. Often best ideas for dealing with situations come from students themselves. When we put them into group projects, and those are useful way of teaching students how to get along, work together, and it's a skill they will need in many areas of their life. That is so essential. We talk about instilling perseverance. Now, we've spoken about problem solving. We've spoken about how we can have the values incorporated in our lessons. And while we are teaching them, we relate it to the relationship building. Let's talk about instilling perseverance in students. It's so important. And in fact, it's something which they are losing out on, especially during today's time. They cannot have enough patience for it. So that self-motivation is a key component here in kids attaining and getting and feeling accomplished of whatever they're doing. While there are many students who will naturally strive to better themselves in some way or the other, there are students who will need a little more coaching and guidance and help. So reminding students that to experience success, they must put forward effort, and perseverance is very important. So every time, instead of just praising the one who've done very well, we can praise the students who've put in a lot of hard work, and we are aware of it. And we encourage them to keep trying until they master it. With practice, they'll be able to do it. Rather than demotivating them that you fail to reach out to what is expected out of you, we need to praise the efforts, just not just the result, but the effort which goes into it. Each child should be encouraged to set goals for themselves. That's a very important way of helping them get a sense of accomplishment. This helps offset negative thoughts and encourage students to dig deep and find determination to succeed in life. So they set their own goals according to their abilities, where the teacher is very instrumental in helping the child set their own goals. And then they slowly achieve it. They get a sense of accomplishment. Yes, what I set out for myself at the start of the year, I'm there at the end of the year. Maybe I'm not at A plus, but I'm somewhere close. I'm at B. Earlier I was at E, C, D, wherever. So now I've at least reached here. Next year I'll move a little more towards my goal. So that's how we instill perseverance in students. And we model out respect to children. We show them, we be respectful, and we teach them how to be respectful amidst themselves. We incorporate character education. This encourages the development of ethical and responsible students. We teach the students the importance of having good values like being honest, trustworthy, taking responsibility for their actions. And in this way, we encourage kids to think about ways in which they can become more responsible in the classroom and be more disciplined. Eventually, if these are the character traits that the students have, obviously the child is going to be more disciplined in life. When they will appreciate the aspects of being honest, being more forgiving by nature, so they will be much more disciplined in their own life. We encourage them to share opinions. It is seen that students, as they advance in classes, they become more and more self-centric. They do not want to share. If you go to a younger class, you will find students bubbling with opinions that they have to say, because there they are not at that fourth level. They do not know that they don't know, and so they are very happy to share whatever little they know. But later, as they develop that self-consciousness, they are not very open. So that's where we become very active in helping them share their opinion by not judging them. They are also less likely to struggle with envy and jealous if we give them such opportunities and such platforms where they can come and share their opinion. And they are applauded for whatever opinion. So that's how they develop tolerance for one another. And we to speak about next is resiliency. Research shows that students who are more resilient are more academically successful. They bounce back quicker. They are more mindful of their opinions. They understand their beliefs. Now, all this is a strong sense of who they are. They develop this strong sense of what is their role in the bigger picture. So that these small aspects of making children becoming more resilient can help us strengthen their emotional intelligences to a great extent. The caring behavior, prioritizing it's a culture. We make this culture in the entire school, and we take everybody on board. It is just not a responsibility of the SEL teacher to come and conduct one class and the students are done with it. It's like something which is to be incorporated in every lesson by every teacher. First, by practicing it themselves, and secondly, by putting it into practice through these small steps into their lesson plans, which will go a long way. As I said at the beginning, these small initiatives are the ones which will help us see bigger results. And it's not going to happen in just a jiffy. It's going to take time, but we should have the patience to work with it so that we are able to see the difference. We keep our glasses filled, and what we keep our glasses filled with, it's very important. If we keep it filled with positive emotions, then that's what we're going to spread. Like if anybody bumps into us and we have this glass filled, I mean, I'm not talking about physically just bumping, but any interaction or conflict or anything. And what we spill, if our glasses are filled with water, that's what spills. If it's tea, if it's coffee, so it spills that. So when it is filled with positive emotions, then that's what we spread. Those are mirroring nuances which are at work. If we see somebody flashing a bright big smile, we can't help but smile. And if we see somebody very angry, we definitely, we tend to make a face of this kind as well, where our brows are coming closer to each other. So we have to create a situation and a culture in our school so that the students are able to mirror it out, and where the culture of strong empathy, social relationship, emotional awareness is there, we cannot help but create students of that kind where they will have these things. So let's have a quick recap of what we've discussed today. Our starting point is, of course, acknowledging our own emotions and not showing them away, putting it under the pillow, because then at one point of time, then boom, it goes up and then there's a blast and we are not able to handle and there is chaos everywhere. So we need to acknowledge our emotions. We need to differentiate and analyze our emotions. the limbic system and the rational system. Accept and appreciate it. So there should be a point of acceptance. Yes, I feel like this. There is a reason for it. There is a root cause. I will work towards removing the root cause rather than just reacting to it. Reflecting on our emotions and taking the necessary corrective actions. Handling our emotions so that we are able to handle others' emotions also pretty well. So that's a little thing about emotional intelligence from my end. Let's educate and equip our students with those quintessential skills so that they are the global leaders and they can have an excellent future ahead of them. That's what we all envisage with our students, right? Thank you so much. I'm ready to take up questions. And if there are any more, you can always find me at my Insta page, Nafi_Leti.
Thank you, Nafisa ma'am, for such an informative session. I would say it was really very interesting, and you very well explained about the competencies and how can we like enhance our competencies, and how like the four stages, and on the fifth stage where the teacher has to be, and several other aspects of emotional intelligence, and how emotional intelligence can be incorporated in our students. That was the best part of your presentation, because like that is the need of an hour. Because if our children will be emotionally intelligent, they will be more sensitive toward each other's feeling, and they'll be more able to like respect each other if they are emotionally intelligent. So I would like to request my audience, if you have any question, please post it. Miss Nafisa is here to answer all your questions. There is a comment in, I guess, Bengali. I'm not able to comprehend it. I'll show it to you.
I'm sorry, it's difficult for me to decipher it either. Extreme apologies for not being able to read that.
Sorry, no problem, ma'am. So, ma'am, meanwhile, our audience are posting some questions to us. I just want to ask you one thing. Like we are doing these things online, like we are opening our schools from today, like schools open today, but god forbid if the conditions stay does not stay the same and the third wave comes. So how will you recommend to develop this emotional intelligence in the online thing? Because children are not with each other, they are not getting that physical setup of each other's feeling, understanding each other. Like at times you understand each other when you see the body language of the other person, or at times when like you see the facial expressions of the other person. But in the online setup, people are like if they are upset or depressed, they close their cameras, or at times like we don't want to face others, we close our cameras. So how do to like understand this perspective of emotional intelligence in online teaching and learning?
Absolutely. That is, of course, a very big challenge for all of us at the moment. But there are times when children do show up their feelings and we can gauge it. You know, as I said, mirroring nuances, when we are teaching the students, we develop a rapport with them. And that's exactly when we know that something's at play and it's not going very smooth. That's when we connect with the students. We should, in fact, it's recommended that we connect with the students outside those classroom hours in order to understand if anything is wrong with them. Many a time, students want to just turn off their cameras and sit back. So rather than coaxing them at that very moment, it depends on, of course, which age group you're dealing with. Sometimes with the junior students, you just have to be a little more firm in your approach and they would listen to you. But with the older students, you need to be more patient and understand their part of the whatever they have to say, their part of the entire story, what is playing at their mind and how they are feeling. In fact, there are as the time demands it, people come up with things as well. There are several activities which can be conducted online as well in order to strengthen emotional intelligence, as I said, the breathing exercise and the other things. So if we start our day, we at our institute do have these 10 minutes of PE classes where not rigorous exercises are done, but breathing exercises are done. This is just done to develop that kind of um, a calm and composed nature in students that we would like to see, because we know online classes are taking a toll on each of us, and especially the students, and where they want to meet their peer group. There are breakout rooms as well. We put students at times into breakout rooms, and then we give them a task which they can do it in a group, and they were very happy. They get a time to interact, and then they are let off. They know that the teacher is not listening to every little thing that they have to say, and they can talk amongst themselves. So they very quickly live up to the situation by doing something, and given a task and time limit, they are happy to interact with each other. So these are certain ways in which we can overcome the obstacles that we are having right now. Hope that answers your
Thank
questions.
you, ma'am. Thank you for answer. Yes, ma'am. You answered my question well. Thank you so much. And I hope my teachers who are watching us live, or maybe who will watch our session at a later point of time, they understand this and they can practice this in their classes and inculcate emotional intelligence in their children. So I don't see many questions coming, ma'am. So with this, we come to an end of our session. Thank you so much, dear audience, for attending our session, and thank you so much, Nafisa ma'am, for organizing and conducting such a lovely and interactive session. Thank you, and have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you to the entire Getty team. Thank you, ma'am.